You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike.
Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library Without Books. I'm here with librarian Brent Newcomb.
We live in Missouri. The Attorney General is taking all the books out of the library.
Yeah, that's the price of our location.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But we're happy.
We're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're doing this in mid-January, well, I guess early January, and I'm very aware that at some point within the next few weeks, you're going to tell me that you're going to disappear for some period of time.
Probably the rest of your life.
So is that?
I've had it. I'm out of here.
Is that true? Are you going on sabbatical?
Can't fire me. I quit. Well, I'm going to take a vacation.
Yeah, you do that every year.
As often as I can, not yearly.
Well, you do the long trip once a year.
As often as I can.
Well, yeah. And actually, I've been saying at some point you may tell me that that's going to evolve into 6 months. We'll see.
Thank God for the internet.
But you really believe in that. You believe that that has been something that has been wholly beneficial for you. That
travel?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And I know we revisit this whenever it comes to this time and you're getting ready to leave.
I love seeing new places and new people and learning how they live their lives and what they believe in, what matters to them, what they do. Mm-hmm. Going out amongst them. Mm-hmm. To me, it's satisfying and educational and enjoyable.
So the topic for this discussion is what we learned from therapy in 2022, and I was surprised.
How did they know I was in therapy in 2022?
Well, I think what this person learned from therapy in 2022, the person who's writing the article.
I see.
But what surprised me to the point of even mild shock is that you really enjoyed this article. I shouldn't say really enjoyed. You enjoyed some.
You should not say that.
Yeah.
I found it to have some interesting points that the author made that I went, oh, instead of like, because I go a lot to the articles that you send me.
I know. And so, so I was surprised that this one caught your eye.
Spiro Agnew once said, I am an effete intellectual snob. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nattering nabobs of negativity.
Yes. I love that.
I do too.
So what was the biggest takeaway that you had? What was the thing that you looked at that you said, oh yeah, that really, really talks to me?
One, they made a list of like 10 observations.
Yeah.
They said these are
and we can go through them.
Yeah. globally that therapists are reporting seem to travel well, as we're talking about traveling. One of them was overcoming indecisiveness starts with realizing and accepting that not everyone will agree with you. Mm-hmm. The idea that everyone will agree with you with what you want to do or what you think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a non-starter, but so many of us are trapped in the boundaries of that expectation.
And I have people in my life, I'm sure you have people in your life that really struggle with that. Like they really need
get a consensus,
to make
have approval and praise. You go, man. You got it. This is what we want for you. You need to find out what you want for yourself.
And my advice to clients, my advice to myself, my advice to people that are in my immediate family is you need to do you and then let the chips fall where they may and be able to accept that. And you're never going to be able to satisfy or appease every single person who
you're never going to be happy and okay with yourself if you're living for someone else's opinion.
Oh, that's even good.
Because you give away your power. You give away your autonomy. Mm-hmm. You live in service of satisfying someone else. Mm-hmm. You have to figure out what you need to be satisfied.
Okay.
What makes you happy.
All right, so I'm going to push back on that a little bit and say, this is what I envision my client saying to me when I say that is, well, but what if pleasing other people makes me happy?
Can you spell prostitute?
Well, you wouldn't say that in therapy.
Actually, I would.
Okay.
I absolutely would. Because you have to jolt them to get their attention.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
You
that's,
have to
yeah.
make them think outside of the ruts
Yeah.
that they think in.
Yeah.
Not that you have the answer and that you're giving it to them, but part of the job is to stimulate them to see and hear themselves differently. Can you just speculate?
Right.
I mean, I remember a conversation with a client who was so fundamentally, viscerally angry with her father because of childhood abuse issues. But they were the looking good, popular, wealthy family in town, and she wasn't allowed to ever say to anyone or imply that her father was less than perfect. And I would encourage her to identify her own feelings, just between us. And I'm legally bound not to say it to anybody. She can say, I'm mad at my father. I'm disappointed in my father. I don't like my father. And she would move her lips to say it, but she couldn't say it out loud. The no air, no voice, but she'd mouth the words. And then by the time we finished our sessions together, she was able to say out loud, my father has pluses and minuses, and there are pieces of him that I really don't like.
Wow.
And worked on trying to get to a place where she could say that to her siblings and to her parents. But I lost track of her after we finished. So I don't know.
Well, but even that seems
But yeah,
really
because
powerful.
we don't think that way.
Yeah.
If we're raised in family, like if you're messaged from childhood that your parents are all knowing and they know what's best for you. I remember going to college. When you go to college, at least when I went to college at that time, the men in the dorm would sit around at night, late hours, and talk philosophy and religion and economics and government, and just talk about the stuff we were learning. And we were talking about different religious points of view, different churches and faiths, and what they believed, and what we believed and didn't believe, and what fit in. And this one boy who's my roommate said, I never have those conversations because I have the right answer. And I said, well, how do you know you have the right answer? What faith are you? And he told me. This is a church he was raised in. And I said, how do you understand that they have the right answer? There's only one way, and it's their way. He said, because that's what my parents told me, and my parents never lied to me. And he believed that. Well, whenever life intruded on that shell, he was going to take a hit. It was going to hurt. He was going to have to react. It's like popping a hot air balloon. You got to stop that leakage or the balloon crashes.
Yeah. And there was even one of these that had to do with, so number 9, there's a difference between healthy and rigid boundaries.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So he was living with very, very rigid boundaries.
That had been put on him by somebody else.
And then that's like a glass sphere that you're living in that can shatter. And what you want is a sphere around you that's malleable, that can bend and remold itself given the situations that you find yourself
Well,
in.
and that's a natural lead into the next one of the 10. The 10th one is, hard as it is to admit, you can be the ones who are being passive aggressive. Because when you're passive aggressive, you don't actively stand for a position. You just sabotage the positions of others. You do it with allowing them to believe that you've reached an agreement and you're going to comply. I used to, as an acting out adolescent, who was required forcefully and physically to say yes sir and yes ma'am. I learned how to say yes sir in a way that would clearly communicate, hey, no way in hell that's happening. And also to say yes sir in a way that would actively and enthusiastically embrace, oh, let's go do that, or yes, I want to do that. But the words that I was allowed to use, yes sir, never changed. So the tone and the delivery carried the message.
And did your father, was he able to interpret the nuance between those?
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
But then he would attack, and I would hold out my hands, palms up and open, with a wide-eyed look on my face and go, I don't understand. I said, yes, sir, that's what you told me to say. Of course, I'm going to do that, what you would command, to try to diffuse the anger that I had provoked deliberately.
So that was your way of trying to gain power?
It was my way of being passive-aggressive.
Yeah.
To
But I mean,
have,
that's...
some independence within a system that didn't allow it, without bringing it to a full confrontation. Eventually, at the age of 17, I quit doing it that way. And the outcome was my father told me, go away and don't ever come back. Move out. You're gone. And so I did. And that particular chapter closed. But you have to be, I mean, you can say, I'm going to run away from home. And a lot of times people do, but they don't mean it.
Right.
They're going to say, I'm going to get, because they'll run away from home. Teenagers will run away from home. They'll go stay at their friend's house for 2 or 3 days. Their friend's mom will call and say, don't worry, Joey's over here. I've got that under control. He's going to be safe, blah, blah, blah. And then in a few days, Joey will come back and say, I'm going to give you one more chance to get this right.
Right.
You know, just don't mess with me anymore. Generally, life doesn't work that way.
Right. So I tell people all the time that the person who has the greatest potential to change any system is the individual who is the most psychologically flexible.
Yes.
And what happens is that if you are the most psychologically flexible person in your system, and you're angry because you are the person who has the ability to generate change, you're just punching yourself in the face. You just have to accept that you can't be angry because you're the most psychologically flexible person. Like, you chose to change how you were interacting with your father when you were 17.
We came to a mutual agreement.
Because you were the most psychologically flexible person in that dynamic. And the consequence was that he told you to go away. That may not have been the consequence that you wanted.
Well,
it may
what
not
I was
have been
looking for.
what you were
But
anticipating.
the alternative was not acceptable to me.
But you were able to deal with that because you were the most psychologically flexible. So you could have left that relationship and maybe at the time you were angry and resentful and said, that no good SOB.
Oh, I still
I'll get
am.
him. Yeah.
70 years later, or 60 years later.
But if you are the most psychologically flexible person and it is your responsibility to create change, you have to, when we talk about emotional intelligence, which is something that we've talked about in the past, emotional intelligence says you have to be able to accept that. You have to be able to change the system because you are the most psychologically flexible, and then accept that that is the truth of your situation, not be angry and resentful because that's true.
But you have to do it with some intelligence and some capacity. You know, Darwin says those that adapt survive. But if I say, okay, I'm going to leave home, and I go out and I lay down on the railroad tracks and a train runs over me,
Well, yeah.
that's not, it would not have been a good choice.
No.
But if I said, I'm not willing to live under these conditions and circumstances anymore, I'll take potluck because I believe in myself enough that I think I can survive in potluck in a better way than I'm surviving here.
But I think that your father said to you, leave and don't come back, because he wanted to put you in a position where you would go out, find out that it was harder to take care of yourself than you had thought, and you would have to come back to him with your tail between your legs.
I don't know that he thought that far ahead.
You don't think so?
No, I think his sole goal was to say, I'm in charge and you'll do what I told you.
But then
That's how he lived his life. That's what he believed.
But and so once you were out of that home, then he wrote you off. That was it. And that was his.
It was many years before we had contact again.
Yeah.
And when we did, the role definitions had changed dramatically.
Because you didn't need him anymore.
Exactly.
But don't you think that was the win for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that moment in time became a
now
very
ask me if I
seminal.
care what it was for him.
No, I know you don't.
Yeah.
But that moment in time, I think, was very, very seminal for you. I think that it really solidified what was going to become your identity for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, sometimes when we get in those situations where we recognize we're the most psychologically flexible person, we have to make decisions that we don't really want to make. Don't be resentful, because you may find, given time, that is actually one of the most important, influential moments of your life.
Well, as I was just saying, clients will say, the worst thing that ever happened to me
Is the best
I
thing.
would have said at that point in my life, that was it. Turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because that allowed me to go down a completely new path and follow a new direction until I got to another turning point, which was similar, where someone said, I don't want to be with this anymore. So excuse yourself from this.
When I was 25, I got sentenced to prison for my drug abuse. And at that time, I thought that was going to be the end of my life. I thought that was the worst thing that would ever happen to me. But it was the thing that got me on a different track, and I started taking school seriously. And it was the thing that led me to be the person I am today. If that hadn't happened to me, I don't know who I would be.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like you said, those things, when they happen, we can't see them for the transcendent moment that they are. But we have to be psychologically flexible enough to let ourselves believe that that can be a good thing.
In therapy, one of the things that we want to do, because people rarely do it without encouragement and
Okay, hang on. Hold that point. Let's take our break, and we'll pick that up on the other side.
One of the reasons that I want to participate in this show is because it gives me an opportunity to clinically review my understanding of what therapy is and how it works, especially for the consumer. Mm-hmm. So my hope is that we will find conversations that broaden my understanding of that.
And my hope is that we do that in a way that is useful but also entertaining for people, so that they want to listen, not only because they're getting good psychology information, but because they just enjoy the show.
Easy listening with an informational twist. So
that's a new tagline.
They're not sitting there going, huh?
Easy listening with an informational twist.
I'm really good at it. I'm a professional.
You're a professional. If it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back. So you were saying in therapy.
In therapy, I would ask clients, what do you want? If you could have anything that you want, what do you want?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? How do you want to live? What kind of career are you looking for? What will make you happy? What do you feel? And particularly men will be like, I don't know. Because they don't know. Mm-hmm. Why don't they know? They're not trained to ask. Mm-hmm. They're not trained to ask what they feel and verbalize and label it. Which is a big part of it. You can't just feel it. You gotta feel it. You have to label it. You have to externalize it. Mm-hmm. So I'm feeling it. I'm angry. Okay, that's a label. I'm angry. So I have to say it out loud. I'm angry, instead of swallowing it in and holding it back. So then you have to say, well, so what do you want out of life? And we used to have clients make lists, and it turned out to be an inverse pyramid. If you had all the time and money that you wanted, how would you be spending your time? What would you be doing? And then, how are you spending your time now? And they're inverse pyramids. They don't match up anywhere. Mm-hmm. So you say, well, what's wrong with this picture? Mm-hmm. If you like to travel, when do you go somewhere? Where do you go? Define travel. You want to go from here to Festus? You want to go here from Los Angeles or here to Paris? What steps can we make so that you can say, well, I'm traveling.
Yeah.
I travel to work every day. How far do you go? Oh, 10 miles. Okay, so Saturday, can you go 15 miles? And see what's on the other side of that? Oh, I don't know. Well, you can if you give yourself permission. And it matters. Little steps. The John Kennedy used to quote an old Chinese syllogism, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Mm-hmm. You may have to walk from here to Syracuse, but you got to walk one step at a time.
Right.
So take a step. Find out. And so men are not trained to say what they think, and we are not trained to say, what do you want? Mm-hmm. And I would encourage people to do that.
Number 8 on the list is we can be our own gaslighters.
Yeah.
And that spoke to me because I think that as therapists, we probably are aware of this. We may even be actively trying to convey this to the client. But the truth is that your perception is your reality.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter if other people agree with that or not.
But when you're young, it's imposed on you by the definitions of others.
Yes.
And so when your parents say, oh my God, are you stupid? What? Are you so stupid that you did that? You internalize that message and you start to say, well, I can't take this risk. Mm-hmm. I can't try to do this thing that I want because I'm stupid. Mm-hmm. I'm not smart enough to do that.
I don't have the right to succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you get older, then those messages, those vestigial messages, so vestigial meaning they don't have a purpose anymore, but they're still around, like your appendix.
I knew you were going to say that.
Or your tailbone. Those vestigial messages are still in your head. And they're still going to have influence on you, and you can be convincing yourself of something that may not be any more factually accurate, but you don't know how to stop telling yourself those things. And so one of the things that we do in therapy is to try and help people identify what are those old tapes that are playing in their brain that they don't need anymore, and that they may actually actively want to change.
And those tapes are often in a file folder called should. You should
or must
go to church on Sunday. You should get married to have sex. You should go to work and make a lot of money. You know, and if you're not pursuing that, if you want to be a musician and you walk around with a guitar and just sit down somewhere and start playing, whether you make money or not, your support system, in all likelihood, will have been telling you you should get a job. You should go work a 9-to-5 job or a midnight to 8 a.m. job somewhere to make money, and then play music on the side. And that may be a workable solution if you redefine your reality. If you say, not I should do this, but I want to do this, because if I do this, then I can do this. Then I can travel to Atlanta and play music on the weekend.
And if you can, so sometimes what
play music
is
on the train.
Required there is that you have to change some of the wording of the message from I should play music to I enjoy playing music.
And I will play music.
And I will play music. It just may not be professionally. It may not be my primary source of income.
I always wanted to sing, and I was told by every choir director I ever approached, son, you can't sing. And and my family also shared that evaluation with me. You can't sing. So I don't sing much anymore out loud or around people. I may sing in the car by myself, but I found something else to do. You know.
And okay, so not to get deep into the esoteric weeds, but
why not?
But so did you agree with that message, or did you disagree?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I mean, if you were continuing to sing, you must have gotten something out of it.
A lot of approbation and criticism.
Well, okay, but you kept doing it.
I tried because, you know, like I remember teaching high school. I had this kid. I would say to him, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" He said, "I want to be a famous guitarist, and I want to be a rock star." I said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" "I don't know, but I'm going to be a rock star." "You're going to go to college?" "No, I'm going to be a rock star." What does that road look like? "I don't know." I said, "Do you know any rock stars? Do you have any connection to music industry?"
No.
"Do you have an agent?" "No." "Do you know anything about what's involved?" "No." I said, "Do you even have a guitar?" "No, I play air guitar." And you start making. He was dead serious. He was so dead serious.
Yeah.
And I would say, "Okay, great. I hope you are. I hope you make it." But it would seem to me that if a journey of 1,000 miles, you might need to learn how to play a guitar first. You might need to find out some information about the music industry or a band. Go get in a band and see what it's like. See if you like it the way you think you're going to like it. Just don't sit here and daydream.
I had a client once. There used to be a game. There still is a game. I don't know how popular it remains, but called Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. My son played that.
So I didn't play that. And it came with a controller that looked like a guitar, but you just press buttons.
Yeah.
And you played these chords and stuff. Yeah. And I had a client that told me with earnest conviction that he was going to be a rock star because he was the best Guitar Hero player that he knew.
Well, and you know what's funny about that?
He believed it.
You and I came of an era where we would say to the kids, "You're not going to make any money playing video games."
And now people make.
There are people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars playing video games on competitive teams.
Well, now it's even an actual D1 sport in college. You can get a scholarship to go out and play video games, and they treat those kids like they were football players. Yeah. I mean, they're playing video games for 12, 13 hours. Well, I don't know that I think that the way that they approach that is healthy. Just like I don't know if the way they approach football practice is healthy. They have those kids playing video games literally 18 hours a day while also going to school. I don't know that that's any healthier than the way that we have other Division I sports that we treat those. So I think that there's a way to reevaluate how we treat those things. But yes, people are making a lot of money, and especially in Japan.
See, I think you're looking at that from the window of value and economics are the same. So the answer is, how much money are you making? The question is, how much are you feeling fulfilled, happy, satisfied?
Right.
Are your relationships good?
Yeah.
Is life where you want it to be? And that's hard to remember to ask that question. How's that working for you? Are you getting out of life what you want to get out of life? And there may be windows where the answer is yes. I'm so caught up in this, it's the only thing that I can see, so I want to put my all in it for as long as it still feels that way. But then you want to invite them to consider there may be an end of the road when you say, I'm done with this. I've done all of this that I need to do. Now I'm going to go and find something else to get involved with.
So, well, I don't know. I wonder if, like, if you're playing football and for a major university and you're spending all that time playing football, you probably think you're pretty happy. But is it the healthiest way to live your life? I don't know. I struggle with, can that person in that situation see
Do
the
they have
full
enough
context?
perspective?
Yeah.
Does any of us?
Do any? Exactly. Yeah.
I would say, boy, I really am where I am now. But from the outside, somebody might look at me and go, oh, that's pathetic. And they might be right.
And number 5 on the list was, when you're worked up, stop and halt. Which I, being somebody who is familiar with the recovering community, I found to be interesting, because that is a
So
direct
HALT is an acronym.
Yeah, for don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And so when you are in recovery, they use that as a way of saying, when you experience these extremes of emotion, that oftentimes is a trigger for relapse, which is factually accurate. I wonder how much
Actually accurate as opposed to
application.
being inaccurately accurate.
I said actually. Well, okay, yes, that was redundant.
Just listening, I'm sorry.
But I wonder, I mean, I think that that's good information, but I wonder how you use that in,
Well, you circle the wagon here. You come back to the idea of teaching, especially men, go inside and ask yourself, what am I feeling?
Exactly. That's the goal, is to be
The more you practice
aware
that,
of,
the better you become it, the more capable you are of utilizing it when you need it.
Right.
So that when you get a flood of anger, because I mean, one of the things when we work on doing this with clients, we have to teach them degrees or categories of the label, because many men will say, I'm fine, until they explode with rage.
Right.
They don't know any distinction or gradation between. So you have to teach them how the words, I'm upset, I'm irritated, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm furious, I'm rageful. And what feeling levels match each of those words. And that takes practice. It takes practice and labeling. You have to label it, you have to feel it, assess it.
And most of the time, you'll get to rage before you recognize it, and then you'll start to learn there are minor gradations,
So,
and you have to be able to recognize those, but it takes practice, as you're saying. So in
So by the time we
recovery,
get
though,
to therapy, they're already at the rage end, and you have to go backwards.
right.
You have to take them back down the ladder.
right. And so in recovery, what we tell people, though, is, not to wait until you're too hungry or angry or lonely or tired, but to do things to dissipate those feelings or to prevent those feelings. So don't, because in addiction, you're always living in extremes. Everything's either, bounty or bust. And so we may not recognize.
And addictions may not just be substances. They may
Right.
be emotional
Sure,
conditions.
absolutely.
They may be physical acts. Okay.
But we want to try and make sure that we are incorporating those things in our program before we get that way. So don't wait until you're starving. Eat regular meals on a regular basis.
My wife and I enjoy the novels of Lee Childs about the character named Jack Reacher.
Yeah, you do.
So we were on vacation last year, and the television system came out with the first series of Reacher.
Yeah.
6 or 8 episodes.
Yeah.
We started watching
Which was
it.
fantastic.
It was to me. I mean, I like it. So, but we started watching it, and I was so caught up in it. I mean, we started like at 5 in the afternoon, and we saw the entire series in one sitting.
Really?
We were on vacation,
Yeah.
so it was like 2 in the morning before. At least I would turn it off and go to bed. But all of a sudden, in the 4th or 5th episode, I realized I'm starving. So then I'm eating crap. You know, a handful of chips, a handful of cookies, not a meal. Not a health. Didn't take a break. Didn't go for a walk. Didn't plan and fix a dinner. So, if I did that on a regular basis, I wouldn't survive. I may be able to indulge it occasionally, but I can't do that as a way of living. And that's where you have to try to teach clients that are
Yeah.
caught up in doing those extremes as a way of living.
When she gave him that gun and he walks out and fired around into the stump,
Yeah.
and she said, "I just told you not to fire." He said, "Never trust a gun that you haven't personally fired."
Yep.
Yeah, that was a very, very, very good adaptation of
a novel, yeah.
And what's we actually listened to that book on tape. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Traveling out to
Well, we
Colorado to
listened
go skiing one year.
We listened to as much of it as Paul could stand.
As your buddy could, Paul could stand. Yes, that's actually, yes. So if you want to do us a favor, you can go to the interwebs. You can find us on the YouTubes at Psych with Mike, and you can subscribe to the show there. That would be fantastic. We would really appreciate that. You can find us on the Apple Podcasts at Psych with Mike and leave us a comment and a rating, and that helps other people find the show, which is fantastic. The music that appears in Psych with Mike, I got distracted. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is
Weren't you
written
listening to yourself?
by Benjamin DeClue, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. No, apparently I wasn't.
Apparently not.